Hello, this is Sarah Braj. Welcome back to my channel. So I just want to start off by saying that I apologize. I have not made as many videos lately as I would like, and I just want to let you know that the reason why is because it's a little bit hard for me to sort of gear myself up for making videos, because I know, of course, that I'm going to be, viciously attacked at each time that I make a video. So that's why it's a little bit hard for me to make videos, but I know that I have to do it. I need to do it to get the truth out about the witch hunt at Yale and to restore due process and equal protection. And I still hope to monetize my YouTube channel at some point, to raise legal funds and living expenses funds. So I am going to do it. So I geared myself up to make videos tonight, and I'm just gonna kick out a ton of videos. So this first video is going to be about a talk that was given recently at Yale by a New York City psychiatrist named Dr. Aruna Khilanani. And probably most of you are aware of this issue, of what happened, this situation. So there's something called grand rounds at the Yale School of Medicine. And so Dr. Khilanani does not have any affiliation with Yale outside of the fact that she was invited to be a speaker as part of these grand rounds at the Yale School of Medicine, which, as I understand it, is basically continuing medical education for, in this case, psychiatrists. It would be for psychiatrists. And just like, attorneys like myself have to take part in continuing legal education every year. And we have to take different classes to keep our license active, that sort of thing. And so I believe this is just the same kind of thing, except for doctors. So it was a talk, it was a virtual talk, it was at the Yale School of Medicine, and it was open to the public, was meant to be open to the public, I believe was open to the public. I think you probably had to register for it, but I think pretty much anyone could register for it. I'm not exactly sure. But anyway, it was definitely given under the auspices of Yale. And there were Yale professors, doctors in the medical school, psychiatrists who moderated the talk, who commented on the talk, who introduced the talk. The talk was approved, and the talk was disgusting. It was black supremacist, it was racist, it was anti-white, and it was called I believe it was called The Psychopathy of the White Mind. Something very similar to that. That was the title. And so this Dr. Aruna Khilanani, she gave this talk, and in this talk she spoke about having fantasies about killing white people. She swore. She talked about how and I'm going to do a few different videos after this one because I don't want this video to get too long. So I'm going to do 3 separate videos to talk about 3 different aspects of her talk. One, I'm going to talk about woke transracialism and the one thought rule. And that's going to be about, this was something that Dr. Khilanani addressed in her disgusting talk at Yale, where she talked about how she had basically just cast off, unfriended her white friends, and that and she also cast off and unfriended her friends of color, whom she claimed were, sort of manifesting whiteness, or who had become white people. And so one of the videos I'm going to do is going to be on that topic, this interesting phenomenon. Woke intersectional feminists, critical race theorists, they seem to have this idea that transracialism is okay and is a phenomenon that's real, but white people can never become people of color. But the instant that a person of color, especially if they're not a black person, expresses a single unwoke thought, they immediately, instantaneously become white people. And so this is what I call woke transracialism, and I call it the one thought rule, just like the one drop rule. So historically, the one drop rule was that if you had a single drop of black blood, then that made you black. And so I call it the one thought rule, which means that if a person of color, especially if they're not a black person, expresses a single unwoke thought, they immediately become white people. So she expressed this idea in her talk. Something else in the talk that I want to address is the issue of blackfishing, which I've addressed before, especially when I've made videos about Tariq Nasheed and Kamala Harris and what happened to me at Yale during the Living or Napping While Black hate crime hoax. So blackfishing is, it's a relatively new term, but what it means is it's usually used to describe a white person who in some way, shape, or form is pretending to be a person of color. And sort of the most notorious example of this is Rachel Dolezal. She was actually, I believe, an NAACP chapter president, and she is a white woman who grew up white, who was claiming to be black, who was tanning her skin, who was wearing black hairstyles. And I believe she had gone to a historically black university as well, historically black college. So that's the sort of most notorious example of blackfishing, but there are many other examples. And so I am actually saying that what Lalata Siambola did at Yale, what Tariq Nasheed accuses Kamala Harris of doing, is a form of blackfishing, where, like, Tariq Nasheed says that if you are a new immigrant, new African immigrant, etc., that you are not a foundational black American, you are not an American descendant of slaves, and he gets extremely upset with people of color like Kamala Harris, even though she's a person of color. Her father was a Haitian immigrant. Haitian? Was he? Or Jamaican? I forget. I'm sorry. I forgot. But her father, was it? I forget. I'm sorry. I forget. I wish I had double checked that before I made the video. And her mother was an Indian immigrant, and I believe they met at university in the United States. And so Tariq Nasheed really just abhors Kamala Harris because he sees her as usurping the struggle of American descendants of slaves, people who are descendants of slaves that were brought to the colonies from Africa, and he refers to them as foundational black Americans. And so I refer to that as a form of blackfishing. And I say that Lalata Siambola, who is Nigerian, that she did that at Yale because she usurped the Living While Black movement and ultimately destroyed it by perpetrating the Living or Napping While Black hate crime hoax at Yale. She wasn't the only one who perpetrated one of those hoaxes. But that is, I'm saying that that is a form of blackfishing. And so I want to address this in the context of Dr. Aruna Khilanani's disgusting talk at Yale, because she is, now I think there's not a definitive answer as to her background, her immigration story, etc., but I believe her family, I believe she was born in the U.S. I believe that her parents were immigrants to the U.S., and I believe she is Indian, I believe. I could be wrong about that. I'm not entirely sure. And I want to make it clear that I'm not entirely sure. But some people were saying that she was Iranian, that she was Persian. Some people were saying she was from Pakistan. Some people said India. So I'm not entirely sure. But regardless, she is definitely, because of this talk that she gave, where she was definitely usurping the struggle of what Tariq Nasheed would refer to as American descendants of slaves, foundational Black Americans, right? That the struggle of Black Americans in the U.S., the descendants of slaves, is she's usurping that struggle, and that struggle has not been her struggle. She is an incredibly well-educated person that seemingly comes from a very privileged background. Her parents were also very well-educated, new immigrants, so educated at, you know, prestigious elite universities and institutions. So this is not someone who has struggled the way that foundational Black Americans, American descendants of slaves, have typically struggled. And so she's blackfishing, she's usurping that struggle for her own personal gain. And so that's another video that I want to make. And then I also want to make a video about how she drew so much, her talk drew so much on the anti-Semitic and Black supremacist, melanin and original DNA conspiracy theories. And she talked about white people as predators. She talked about white people as psychopathic. She talked about white people as unemotional, as machine-like, as thieves of everything good that has been done in history. The Earth's history that has been attributed to white people was stolen from Africans, was stolen from people of color, and that, you know, basically white people are just frauds, and that they, you know, that they are too stupid to understand, and so that's another, and so much of what she talked about, comes directly from the melanin original DNA conspiracy theories. And so I'm going to do a separate video about that, and it's very much in line with David Icke's conspiracy theories, where he talks about the archons from the Nag Hammadi texts, and he talks about the Anunnaki from Sumeria, and he talks about, the descendants of, these basically ancient aliens. They became, the royal families of Europe in particular, and that they are especially, white people like me, that have, 100%, Viking DNA and O-negative blood. And so I'm going to do a separate video about O-negative blood. I'm going to do a separate video just about the melanin and original DNA conspiracy theories, and I'll probably also talk about, I guess it's called the Yaqub conspiracy theory. I think that's the one that's the Nation of Islam, Louis Farrakhan, the one that Nick Cannon had, subscribed to, that he apparently has repudiated at this time. But anyway, so I also want to make a video just about that. I don't want this video to get too long, so I will stop here. But I also will talk more about her interview with Mark Lamont Hill. And Mark Lamont Hill also is someone who subscribes to, has an allegiance to Louis Farrakhan, Nation of Islam, and subscribes to conspiracy theories that are very much along the lines of the melanin and original DNA conspiracy theories. And so Dr. Aruna Khilanani, she was interviewed by Mark Lamont Hill on his new Black News site. And I also want to talk about, I'll probably make another video yet about how, Yale is truly in the thrall of the melanin and original DNA conspiracy theories, and how Lolata Ciambola is a very well-documented proponent of these conspiracy theories, and how there's just no way that the Yale administration didn't know that. And also I want to talk about how I'm now of the well-considered opinion that woke intersectional feminism and critical race theory have as their foundation the melanin and original DNA conspiracy theories. So I will talk about that. So I have a lot of other videos that I want to make on these issues, on these subjects. All right, great. I don't want this video to get too long, so I'm going to stop here. I will have all of my fundraising links below, my GoFundMe, my PayPal me, a link to Randazza Legal Group where you can donate specifically to my legal fund, to my legal bill. And I love you all so much. All right, I'll talk to you soon. Okay, bye-bye.